you speak on a topic that it just sends chills down my spine. You have this book, The Black Awakening, and when I last saw you, I got a copy of this thing. Oh my gosh, man. It's like we haven't even scratched the surface with most alternative media as to what's really going on.
Well, it comes from just the groundwork. I mean, on the one hand, we started doing deliverances and stuff like that back in 1979, but we engaged what we call now a chosen one. Satanic ritual abuse is the process, but and others have called them super soldiers, Josh, and they're when we began to deal with them, it was just a matter of seeing them come to Christ, come to healing, come to deliverance. But there was so much complexity. They've been split into different personalities. They've been programmed. They've been demonized. They know ancient languages. So in the beginning, it was strange for us. But I committed back in 1980 to I just said, Lord, I'll go. I'll go as far as you want me to with this. Well, that's many years ago, and we've dealt with hundreds. And the underground, it's like I liken it to Ezekiel 28, where God just led Ezekiel down into a tunnel and opened a door, and just literally showed him the underground. So we have been dealing with the victims to help them ever since that time. But we also have built a team to track and to go backwards to see where did this start. So when we talk about victims, we're talking about highly trained individuals. And the numbers are off the charts. Where they've come from is an astounding picture, and the devastation of their life is the issue that we deal with. We want to help them, but the numbers of them in the United States, every city, every location, every state, you're talking 10 million of them in the United States, and it all goes back to the Nazis, and it all has everything to do with the future, and I believe the troops of Antichrist coming.
So let's kind of build some context around this, because I'm sure some listeners are going to be like, whoa, wait.
Yep.
What are you talking about? So these satanic super soldiers that you were referring to, who are they? Where did they come from? Well, yeah, let's just start there. Where did they come from?
Sure. When we began to track it, this goes all the way back to the Nazis. And again, we can look at all of the history. We can look at history and see the books. Himmler, Hitler, they wanted to, of course, conquer the world. They wanted to build and part of it was a secret birthing genetic breeding program that Himmler was kind of in charge of and led the way on. Well, they believe that they can create, and we've all heard this, God-men or super, soldiers, but they call it the master race. So their version of this back then in the late 30s was to find Germans who had what they called the Aryan blood. They believed, and for us it would be the Nephilim blood. I mean, this is what they believe, whether we believe it or not. They believe they are being guided to backbreed so that they can reproduce what they called God-men. And that's history. That's what they attempted. What we didn't know was the details of that. And of course, after the war in the mid-40s, then that was kind of we thought it was off the table. Well, what occurred was when Himmler began to do this, his goal was to have 200 million super soldiers for the future, so that when they conquered the world, they have a 1,000-year reign. They would rule and reign with these soldiers. They would be stronger, faster, and again, their version, God-men, small g. So when the war was over, the rat lines took the Nazis, the SS, the scientists all over the world. And 25 years later, all of a sudden, we have these individuals showing up at psych wards and counseling centers. At first, they're diagnosed as schizophrenic, but then they realize, no, these are not. The American Psychological Association, and worldwide, by the way, they had to decide, hey, who are these people? Because they're showing up by the hundreds in the 70s, then by the tens of thousands in the 80s. The estimates were into the millions in the 90s, and it's like, where are they coming from? They diagnosed them in the secular sense and called it multiple personality disorder. It is now called DID, dissociative identity disorder, and they also recognized that the process was a trauma-based, splitting human personality and the creation of separate subalter personalities, but the secular world didn't know how to define or really go into it further, and nor did they track it on a global scale or to see where do they come from and why. They came up with a diagnostic definition, and they tried to bring out treatment models, which they simply cannot heal them in a psych ward or in that process. But that's where in the 70s, 80s, I mean, across the United States, even we began to hear about satanic ritual abuse. Police stations, police detectives began to be trained in the late 80s, in the 90s. I got involved on that side of the fence in the police academy and helping to train but Josh, again, the development is nobody knew. They just saw victims. They saw people that were just damaged, and everybody's been trying to help them. But we realized that the process was satanic rituals, the demonization of these individuals, and then the more we looked into it, the more we engaged, the victims. Well, we found some that came right out of U.S. military, Fort Bragg, Psy Warriors. This goes back to Goat Lab. This goes back to the Operation Paperclip. When these scientists were brought over, they brought a technology that they were already learning under Mengele and the other scientists, and I believe again, dark powers guided them in all this process. So we've heard now of MK Ultra, Monarch, goes back to the Marionite programming. We've heard all of this, and that information is all about 50, 60 years old. What we don't hear on the secular side of it is the vast development of the underground, the demonic side of this, and I believe a technology that they have come up with to in their version, their own words, to create the troops of Antichrist for the future.
Well, Russ, let's take a break there, because I kind of want to talk about, when you say satanic rituals, what do we actually mean? How did they create these individuals? We'll dig into that right after this, folks. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're talking to Russ Dizdar. I'm going to give you a few websites. TheBlackAwakening.com, RaggedEdgeRadio.com, and the ShatterTheDarkness.net. Now, Russ, when we were talking about these satanic super soldiers, how did they actually create them? Was this done through genetic manipulation? Was it done through some sort of weird cultic sex ritual? Like, how did they create these first initial super soldiers?
Sure, it goes back again to the late 30s. In Germany, under the Nazis, they had what was called Lebensborn, source of life. So they believed that they could, with spiritual enhancements, I mean, what they would do in that day, from what we've read anyway, and what we've discussed with some Germans, was they would want to do it on some kind of certain cultic holiday, or in a cemetery, or in some kind of meditative. They wanted to have some kind of spiritual influence when they would seek to breed or to mate, to create. They didn't be married. They just simply chose individuals that seemed to have a disposition with this ancient blood, or this power of the old Aryan. So they would breed them. The idea again was to do rituals in the sense of inducting them. Well, it became more and more pronounced as they developed, because they sought more powers. And it's nothing new in a sense. If we go back to the Old Testament, when the king of Moab weaponized demonic powers, he sought powers to come on his troops to beat Israel. So this concept is a demonic thing. So they did do this in the context of rituals. And today we can go to the web. We couldn't do this back in the 80s and 90s, but now we can go to the web, because most of our stuff came from confiscated, from victims that brought us stuff, took us to locations, books of shadows, materials, or discussions with sub-personalities who spoke fluent German, that were completely in line with the coming new Führer and things like that. So they began to tell us, show us the art book, the books, materials, and at times even draw for us out in locations, ritual, and explain to us what they would do. So in their version of this, they would have preconception rituals where the man and the woman were both going to be demonized. There would be rituals that would conjure, call, or summon a demon to be released into the womb. What they would believe, they were trying to time this in the context of conception, so that they believe they could actually inject demonic presence at the moment, well, be prior to, but at the moment of conception. And their goal, Josh, yes, was to alter the genetics, alter DNA, to infuse. So instead of just a possessed individual, they wanted something altered. Again, in all of our research, 26, 28 years later on it was, they're really trying to recreate or genetically alter with the goal of Nephilim DNA. That's been their version of it. So nowadays, anybody working with anyone on that's an SRA, satanic ritually abused individual, they're going to find out that, they've been to many rituals. Marriage to the Beast in September, all 6-year-old girls go to it. We had Hands of Glory just a week or so ago. All during the year, you'll see now every month has multiple satanic rituals listed. And all of those on a worldwide scale, anyone in the United States that's got this satanic ritual abuse victimization background, they all know this. They've all been there, and anybody who's been working with them know this too. So the goal is summon demon, release it into, for example, we know about programming, kind of like hypnosis. The best way I can explain it is hypnosis. When somebody would hypnotize another person, put them, kind of put them down in a sense, and kind of, say, hey, you're going to sing like Elvis Presley, or you're going to do this or that on stage. Everybody laughs. The person does it. The hypnotist, says, on the count of 3, you're going to come out of this, you won't remember. And they don't, for a while, remember what they just did. Well, this is creating a permanent substate, an alter personality. And then when they begin to develop this personality, they might create this one to be an assassin or a shooter or sex slave or a ritual summoner or runner or enforcer. So they have different... when they split a person's personality, their goal is to program it for what they want within what is called the system inside. Then with the programming, then they want to summon a demon and infuse it into that personality, put that personality down by code, so that it's inside. And the main person, this is their intent anyway, is not even supposed to know. That main individual is not even supposed to know what's inside of them. But if a coven member, or handler as they're called, would call out the trigger or call on the phone and give the trigger, the sub-personality with that trigger phrase would come up. And we've seen this happen hundreds of times. We under the codes can again be tones and voice commands, even sometimes written stuff or timing. We had a federal officer's wife that at 11 o'clock every night, no matter where we were, trying to keep her away from rituals. We didn't realize it at first, but all of a sudden she would just switch personality to a runner who would, whether they're sitting in the car or anything else, they would just simply open the door, roll out, and run. We would never, they were faster, stronger. We could not catch them. And we realized that when the clock struck 11, a digital clock, that was the trigger that pulled up the runner that was to run to a location and eventually get to a coven meeting. So it is birthed in demonic rituals, birthed in the concept. And Josh, in many of them, they have hundreds of sub-personalities. And we're talking so you're saying that shooters just like we've seen on in the news media.
So these individuals not only still exist, but there's an organization that is still creating them? And if so, what is that organization today?
Good. Well, they call themselves the Ancient Brotherhood. And again, when we say, and now again, our research, and in coupling this with deep, the scriptures and studying prophecy and so forth over the years, and I'll be outlining this a little bit in detailed form and an update on all of this Saturday night at the conference. We're talking since they began this in the late 30s, that would have been somewhat of first generation, but when they got spread all over the world, they then, wherever they were, whether United States or Australia or England or Scotland or Canada or wherever they were, they began to do the process there. So the first generation I look at right now would be between 60 years old and 71. And we now know by secular estimates also in the United States, they believe there might be 10 million.
Whoa.
Over a 60-year period that have been developed, or a 70-year period that's been developed. So, but here's the problem. If nobody intervenes and helps these individuals, it's automatic, we found out, that their children, that they will also breed, and their children will be multiple and SRA, so that you have a second generation between basically 36, 37, 38 years old up to in the late 50s. And if nobody breaks into them, then you have you have a third generation developing from the 20s up to in the mid 30s, and now we're dealing with fourth generation, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds that are split, demonized, programmed, same stuff as in them that's in the 65-year-old. So we now have 4 generations of this. So in some cases, we have the great-grandmother, the grandmother, the mother, and the child from 8 years old all the way to 70, all of them that are multiple programmed, demonized personalities, and it does go back to it's kind of hard, if we could think in terms of like just Masons, for example, they have 56,000 temples in the United States. They're in every single city,
really?
every single township, and that's by design. They've done that by design. It's an occult project that they have. But if you drop down just below their secrecy, I believe we have another level that is ultimately what we call shadow government, or what we call the new world order that's coming.
Sir,
this is them.
Sir, hold on one second. Sure. I'm up against another break. We'll continue this on the other side. Don't go anywhere. All right, so Russ, I mean we're at the end of September, heading into October. Everybody's familiar with Halloween. I have heard that pet stores stopped selling some pets to people around Halloween, that satanic rituals still exist. You mentioned the 53,000 Masonic temples around the country. Is there still that element? Are there still satanic rituals and cults in America? And if so, how do we tell if they're in our neighborhood?
Very good. Yeah, I mean, this is part of back in the 80s when we dealt with it back then. I mean, the rise of like Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan, by the thousands and thousands, that organization was growing. Well, that was a popular thing because it got intertwined with music, and a lot of like Slayer and groups got into that, and eventually Marilyn Manson. So you have a lot of that kind of popular Satanism, books, materials, music. It's all over the web, of course. But then you've gotten into, I mean, that's just a popular level. Then you drop down a tier, you go to traditional Satanism, Cathedral of the Black Goat in Los Angeles. Father Meridon put out a book called The Devil's Bible. It describes how to do rituals and, surrender to Satan, know him personally, renounce God, and become a part of their system of it. And yeah, they do real satanic rituals. Now, when you move away from that, you get to satanic groups that have been around, all the way back to Europe, even Aleister Crowley, the Crowleyism is larger now in the world than it ever was when he was alive. So you have multiple satanic style groups, or dark left-hand path magic, that will involve sex magic. Eventually you get into the animal killing of the animal, shedding blood. When it comes to the humans, that's the ancient brotherhood. That's the Nazis called it the Black Flame. So the ancient brotherhood, or what's called the brotherhood, is again, it is a global level. It is, to me, it is a bloodline all the way back. To me, it goes, in our research anyway, it goes all the way back to the Old Testament times. Ezekiel chapter 8 is one of the examples. So when we think in terms of popular Satanism and all the different varieties, I mean, we have a thing on our website. It's absolutely free, called Exposing Satanism 101, the courses we put out. And it goes over psycho-Satanism, self-styled Satanism, traditional Satanism, popular Satanism, the underground Satanism, all the different versions. And the new one, the Temple of Satan, or the Satanic Temple, which is really kind of a mock Satanism. But they all are involved on some level, like even Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible, on rituals, summoning. Now, you go to then the Haitian stuff. Look at Mexico now, Josh, and you see the Santa Muerte, the Saint of Death worship. This is intertwined with the drug lords. There are now 12 million adherents, people committed to the Saint of Death throughout Mexico. You have 100,000 dead in the last 30 years in the drug wars, and the FBI now has recognized that many of those deaths were not just drug lords killing other drug, cartel individuals, but they were ritualistic, cutting out hearts, doing stuff. So Santa Muerte is massive, and it's here in the United States now. Santa Ria, the Palo Mayombe, Abakwa, all of these Haitian versions, even when you go back to voodoo, I mean, this is all off the charts now. I mean, you've got this growing in the last, 6 decades, in the last 30 years, and we've been on the field, 38 years, engaging in evangelism and so forth. So in our research of it, it is just off the charts. You cannot go into any city in the United States and not find the groups that I've just listed. And then the hidden stuff, the stuff that's really hidden, is this ancient brotherhood stuff. It's larger. It's in we've tracked purposely and gone to 80 cities in dealing with cases and dealing with, prayer. We involve this entire process of discovering it. Now, again, on our website, free, absolutely free, is a training course called Dark Rituals, Dark Powers. It's about 14 hours. We even have 2 of the small MP3s aimed at law enforcement. How do you find these underground, the really hardcore underground groups? I don't believe you can find it, because there's this. Here's what the church has to understand too, and here's what biblical revelation will tell us. There is a secret power, a mystery of iniquity. The Greek word is mysterium. It is this global system, this collective of Satan that is operative. Their targets the political, military, and economic realm. Again, a good example is the discoveries at Bohemian Grove. If we look at they call it a mock ritual. It is not a mock ritual. No such thing as sympathetic magic there. That is a real human sacrifice. It's been going on for years. All the victims that have come from there tell us that. Anybody knowing left-hand path magic or ritual knows that's a real ancient ritual. Who do they have there? Presidents, senators, media moguls, and all the rest. We think it's outlandish, but what's really outlandish is who has the power to draw world leaders, including our presidents and senators, to that place. That's what I'm talking about. That is the ancient brotherhood. Track that to Belgium, the Mother of Darkness Castle. Track that to Wewelsburg, the Wewelsburg Himmler Castle. So this underground is, to me, in our research, the same thing as what we see developing, prophesied in Daniel. A new kingdom is going to come, a terrifying, ripping, tearing system. We casually call it the New World Order. The Bible calls it a beast system, a Therion system, meaning it'll bring the greatest destruction to human life, but it will be hidden. It will be supernaturally protected and guarded and cloaked. They even have rituals, Josh, to create a cloaking and an invisibility ritual to hide themselves. So it's I'm going to say this very clearly. It's larger than all of the public satanic groups. It is more it's where I call it the real Luciferian, the blood and guts, they know what they're into. They know they want Lucifer to come. They know they're here to draw the powers to advance that kingdom, to advance the cause. And they're very serious, very deadly, but they're multi-continental, multinational, we all talk about the shadow government. Well, yeah, that's exactly what the Bible prophesies, that there's going to be this system developing, growing, Revelation 13. In the future, which may be just years away, the apocalypse, the unveiling of the Antichrist is inseparable from the rise of this massive, multinational, multi-continental, totally satanically empowered system that will, again, public writers call it the New World Order. And we hear about it in the Mason information. We hear about it in politics. But beneath that thin veneer of just hearing pieces and parts is a system we've looked into for over 35 years of tracking. Boots on the ground. Josh, it is vast. It is huge. They are ready. They're ready to go. They're ready to unleash. That's their declarations.
And how do we? Okay, so one, I think churches need to be talking about this. I think everybody should be talking about it. Two, how do we tell? Like, is there some sort of little sign, like, without sounding funny, like, is there something they might hang on their house? Is there something that might be on their car? Because when we look at the Revolutionary War, we did see Masonic symbols in their business signs. That's how they knew, each other were Masons. Is that sort of thing happening now? And unfortunately, I don't have time to get to the answer before the break, so I'm going to keep you until the other side. But I'm just thinking out loud here. There has to be something that we can individuals do, because I know for certain I'm not getting invited to Bohemian Grove, and I know that I'm not going to be in on the inside track on any of this. So how can I and my listeners even be aware that this is happening? So we'll get into that on the other side. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back right after this. So Russ, before the break, I asked you a question. And evidently it's a popular one, because we heard from a number of people over that break saying, yeah, how do we tell? Is there any way to tell? Like, are these people proud? Do they have bumper stickers, special rings, anything?
No. This is, again, where it goes down below that visible tier. You can do that with Masons, per se. You can do that with, even those in traditional Satanism. They'll reveal themselves along the way. You could be invited to something. So this is quite different, because it's generational, it's bloodlined, it's family, it goes again back generations now. So when we talk about this, and again, our tracking deals with the infiltration of the church, the infiltration of the military. Here's what I'll say quickly. I believe after all these years, and I would say at least close to 30 in tracking directly, including going to Germany and Walensburg and France and so forth, in tracking all of this, that they, in the United States alone, they are in every city, every state, every location. They have been placed by design in military, law enforcement, within the whole structure of American society, in a sense, but also in the church. The infiltration, they begin to release them and send them by design into the body, into the church. PTL, look what occurred there. In churches where they come and they may first come and act like they need help and so forth, but if they are one of these SRAs, and again they call themselves chosen ones, chosen for Satan, they then are very dangerous, because they can be very stealth. If they've shown up at a local church, it means the church has been targeted by a coven, that they are coming in, and up front wise, this is where the danger comes in. Up front wise, they seem to be just somebody you need. You're working with them, you're talking to them, but sub-personalities that are co-conscious, that is, they're conscious, they can be aware of you and see you, that are demonized demonized, they can come in releasing demonic curses, spells. They can summon demons from, a simple ritual, and send and target a pastor and target a church. So how do you then know about them? Well, let me. In that 14-hour training, it does begin with becoming aware of this information overall. I believe again the Bible is spelled out infallibly and incredibly that there will be not only a new order, but there has to be the ground troops. You cannot have a political system, even in a small nation, without the soldiers. So I'm talking here about the soldier level of this vast, political, military, economic system that will be bigger than anything ever in history. So these individuals, they can be in school, they can be in, your next door neighbor, they can be. Now, there's never going to be, and we have not seen where there's just an outward, symbol on the door, something over here. It just doesn't happen. Some of the individuals who are like high priestesses and so forth, it's very possible they can wear a small, tiny ring on their pinky finger. We've seen that. Wearing particular jewelry that might not identify, we don't know what it's all about, but it'd be charged. In other words, demonized jewelry, power rings, things they wear around their neck. When it comes to the military side, when they kind of sanitize this, brought into military, monarchs may have a small tattooed butterfly on their left ankle. Now, that's truthfully, on a visible level, Josh, you're not going to see that. So this is where. Now, you may begin to deal with it in a church. You might begin to deal with it in a counseling situation where you see episodes where these individuals that begin to break down, the programming begins to break down. They want help. They want to break out. So hundreds of thousands of them have shown up in psych wards, counseling centers, and they begin to tell the stories. And, of course, once they come out that level, when they're coming out like that, they may, you might have somebody like that in your church, and there's parts of them telling the stories. They're saying where the rituals are being done, and they might even take you to where they're being done. They might even show you the houses of perpetrators. Now, we have taken individuals like that, and again, for almost 30 years, and we have taken our teams to go to all these different locations everywhere, because we wanted to vet it. We wanted to say, listen, we're hearing weird stories. This is 1980. We're hearing strange stories of underground rituals, and we're seeing languages and things that are written and symbols that we haven't seen in any books. So we decided back then to track it. We learned very quickly that not only is it verifiable and real, but it's dangerous. The death threats come, the bullets will come, the blood on your doorstep will show up. If you begin to really go after them, because Josh, they feel they are so elitist that they're so near the time of their bursting out into the world. There's an arrogance there, satanic arrogance, and so they don't expect anybody to come. But you got to understand, it is deadly to go after them, and any kind of underground cult. But this system, in Canada, in Australia, in England, in Italy, Italy's, the Catholics article just came out the other day. They're in a massive search and development of exorcists in their version of it. Because Italy's overrun, and they don't even understand it's not just demonization. Demonization is pretty easy to deal with if you're a believer and you know your authority, and we've done that hundreds of times. But when it comes to program personalities, demons in those personalities, that's a lot tougher. So you're not going to just see it. In that 14-hour training, it all begins with praying about this, and it goes to Ezekiel chapter 8. Ezekiel was a good prophet. He was a good man of God, but he didn't know what was down underneath the temple that had been there for years and years and years. God knew this. God knows. That's why, Psalm 139, where can you go from his presence? So we're very convinced that God knows where every single one of them are meeting and having their meetings, but they're laced with satanic secrecy. There really is a shielding of satanic powers. And we believe that in praying against that and praying for a breaking into that helps discover, helps expose, as far as Bohemian Grove, okay, there's a little bit of exposure, but the real network and the individual people that's never been cracked into. So it's going to take that. Look in the chapter 8 of Ezekiel and study that, and you're going to see that God had to take Ezekiel. He was willing, but he took him and he had to open a supernatural, I call it a supernatural hole. God had to supernaturally open the doorway in and then tell Ezekiel to go in, showed him so much of the abominations, then showed him more of the abominations. But then he led Ezekiel all the way to the faces of the perpetrators. God willed that it be found out. God willed that it be exposed. But I do believe it takes the hand of God in this, and it takes targeted intercession, targeted prayer. So when you begin to suspect something, you begin to pray, Lord, what is this? And Lord, show us more. And when you're dealing with a victim, and if you find a victim in your church, or you find someone that you think is like one of these individuals, and you begin to help them, you got to do a lot of praying, because in the process, they're going to do rituals against you, guaranteed. If you begin to engage them on any level, or they think you're beginning to come their way, they're going to come after you.